Hey Seekers, and welcome back. I'm your host Julienne Irons, and over the course of this series, we've explored self-worth through our beliefs, our confidence, our nervous systems, our dignity, and even the identities we build to navigate the world. But what if the deepest shift isn't about becoming someone better? What if it's about ending the exhausting job of trying not to be who we are? What if we no longer need to reject parts of ourselves in order to feel whole? Our guest today is Gavin Flanagan, a shadow work and non-duality teacher who teaches that true freedom isn't found by transcending our humanity, but by learning to meet the parts of ourselves we've spent years trying to avoid. Together we explore the difference between intellectual and energetic shadow work, why trying to get rid of anxiety might actually strengthen it, and how the emotions and identities we reject can become the very source of our suffering. Y'all, this conversation challenged many of my own assumptions about healing, self-worth, and even what unconditional love really means. Seekers, if you're like me and you've ever tried to think your way out of fear, fix yourself, or become a better version of yourself, I'm so happy you're here. Because Gavin offers a perspective that has the potential to change not just how we think about healing, but how we relate to ourselves in the middle of it. I'm Julienne Irons, and this is Perspective Shifts for Healing with the Hanged Woman. Let's get into it. So let me guess, you're running a business, showing up, doing all the things, and still second-guessing your next move. That's usually not a sign you need more effort. It's a sign you need clarity. At 3 of Cups Healing, we offer energy and intuitive-based marketing strategy for your small business. We combine tarot insight, competitive research, and real-world strategy to help you understand what makes you stand out, how to communicate it clearly, and what your next move should actually be. So, Seeker, if you're ready to stop second-guessing and start moving with intention, book a free consultation at 3ofcupshealing.com. Your vision, your magic. Let's make it real. Together. That's 3ofcupshealing.com. All right, let's get into the episode. Gavin, I am really excited to have you for our final episode of our self-worth and self-confidence theme, talking about non-duality and shadow work. And I'm so excited to have you here. Thank you so much and welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, thanks for reaching out. We'll just see what happens. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll see what happens.
Hmm.
So, Gavin, for listeners meeting you for the first time, can you just share a little bit about your work, what led you to focus on shadow work and non-duality?
I've been on a spiritual path since my teens, and most recently, I suppose about 10 years ago, I'd been meditating. I've meditated for about 30 years, daily, pretty much daily. And I'm alcoholic, I'm an addict, and I'm sober 20 something years. But probably about 10 years ago, I started to deteriorate, or my state of mind, my peace of mind, my relationship. And I had been through therapy, and I had been through a lot of these other kind of healing modalities and spiritual work. I ended up working with ayahuasca, long story short. And I had never heard that word before, didn't really know anything about it. And being a sober alcoholic, I kind of thought, I don't want to ingest anything, I don't want to work with anything. And for about 6 months, I just felt a call. Like I just felt that there's something here. I ended up working with a great shaman in Ireland, and we worked regularly between ayahuasca and holotropic breathwork. And it was someone who said to me, when they heard like what my journeys were like and what was happening, they said, that sounds like shadow work. And again, I never knew what shadow work was. And then I realized that I started to become useful in a sense to other people. I kind of really had to live it myself. My life completely fell apart. I ended up living in a car. I know these days it's popular, people live in a car like to save money or to travel or to, no, I did not want that lifestyle at all.
Yeah.
And I did it for a long time and was completely broken down in that experience. Status of being a man and needing to like own property or be successful or any of these things. All of that stuff was stripped from me. And that was it. Yeah, that's how it began, I suppose.
So when we talk about shadow work, the kind of work that you didn't know that you were doing, but you were doing, what are we actually referring to?
The way I would see it these days is that there's two types of shadow work. I know this has been a bit black and white, but it might be helpful for some people. And when I realized it was shadow work, I did a little bit of research and I discovered Carl Jung and so on. And I discovered a lot of people online like journaling or trying to understand. And I did that myself. You know, if I was meditating or releasing something or crying or, you know, naturally there would be a thought that, oh, this is related to, you know, my childhood or a past life or related to that journey I had or that experience I had. And very gradually over maybe a year or so of having many of these experiences, profound experiences, I realized that so I'm releasing something. I have a thought about that something, about that experience. And unknowingly, I would go away for 20 minutes and think, is that really true? What happened? And what does that mean? And oh, it's related to this or that. And then over the space of maybe a year, I start to realize this is just taking me away from the actual feeling experience of whatever's happening. And I'm a very slow learner anyway, but I started to see that, oh, the quicker I can leave the concept and the understanding and actually just be in the experience, things started to change far faster. So it was like I went from a few seconds of feeling and an experience and 20 minutes of analysis or 40 minutes of analysis to 20 minutes or 3 minutes of just immersed in that feeling and next to zero analysis. And then I would come through it. And it seemed that my relationships, my dynamic, my own peace of mind started to improve the more I experienced the feeling without the analysis.
What is shadow work in the context of like identity and self-worth? From what I'm understanding, the shadow is like the parts of ourselves that make us feel quote unquote negative emotions, hurts, the things that we hide, those dark parts of us. How do those dark parts of us affect our identity and our self-worth?
I liken it to like a pie chart. Remember in school we had our kind of maths pie charts and whatever, and there might be a slice that says like Gavin is funny, friendly, useful, helpful, but there's also like Gavin is irritable, Gavin is impatient, Gavin is reactive, Gavin is depressive, Gavin is, but ultimately that's what a human being is. It is the pie, it's the whole pie. But in our society, depending where we are and how we've been raised, and in spirituality, often, consciously or unconsciously, we're gravitating towards, I just want the nice pieces of that. You know, I only want to feel happiness. I only want to feel peace or love or bliss. I want to be helpful. And then when that shame or reactivity comes up, it's like, try to deny that and remove that. And you know, I would often respond to various hashtags on threads, and daily I would see many people are saying, you know, how do I get rid of this anxiety?
Mm-hmm.
How do I stop? How do I stop thinking? How do I stop negative? And the danger I feel with that perspective or way of working is that, so this isn't for everyone, obviously, but I think the more we deny those aspects, the more we're actually going to gravitate towards actual depression, actual anxiety and panic attacks, and potentially addiction. So if we keep denying, act like if I feel rage or anger, it's already in me. I can pretend it's not there and I can dance and I can think positive and say nice affirmations, but it's too late. It's already in the system. So, like, rather than going around, you know, the neighborhood trying to escape and all these different escape tactics, I eventually had to learn, no, like, I got to stay in this place and honor this place. Ultimately, right, from a non-dual perspective, there's no such thing as good and bad or good and evil. We're just conditioned and we learn what we like and what we think is acceptable and what we think is unacceptable. Anger, for example, you know, our society, and especially in spirituality, they might think, oh, he's angry. Anger is not allowed. Anger is highly purposeful. Most of my clients are women. Women need to be assertive, need to be direct, or men. Like I by default, I'm a people pleaser. The family I grew up in, I needed to be direct and assertive. And I don't mean expressing anger at people. I mean that there's an energy in it. There's a purpose in it. There's a purpose in grief. Like grief is love, is sadness. It's the breaking down of the ego. So if we can see these uncomfortable emotions from a different perspective or a different framework, we'll realize that these are actually useful ingredients in the cake, in the pie. They're not things that we should be trying to get rid of. They're useful.
I'm trying to see how I can implement that more for myself because I wake up with a ton of morning anxiety. And like sometimes it's so painful that I want to push it away. Like sometimes it's so it's physically painful. Like it sits on my chest. It's been getting increasingly calmer. And yesterday morning I woke up and I was just like, I feel you right now. Like I don't want to do it. I'm so annoyed with you. I keep trying to comfort you. I keep trying to be with you. I keep trying to like befriend you, but you just won't fucking leave me alone. And I just like let that be. I let that anger for myself gave me comfort in that moment with my anxiety.
Good. Yeah. Let's go to that place.
Yeah.
Because it's interesting because I was working on a video this morning about unconditional love. And, Christ said, love thy neighbor as thyself. And I had previously thought, well, if I'm angry at someone, how do I love them? I don't know how to do that. It's a concept. If there's someone in front of me and I'm reactive, like it's kind of ridiculous to say, well, I love you or I accept you. But if I can embrace that frequency within myself, if I can find the courage to actually honor and allow whatever is already here, well, then this will settle. And now this person is no longer the issue. The issue is never anyway the other person. The issue is what's happening in here. I've been in spirituality for 30 years, but I've also been involved in psychology and self-help and all of these dynamics. But they're all about changing ourselves. Like that's really dangerous.
Yeah.
The foundation, I have no interest in affirmations, but if I was to say I'm rich or I'm successful, I'm basically affirming that whatever is happening here right now is not quite enough. It's not enough. Every time I do, so if I try to raise my frequency, I'm basically underneath that is that suggestion that whatever is happening in this moment is incorrect.
Oh, that just gave me like chills. Because yes, yeah. And whatever's happening in this moment for me feels scary. That's what comes up a lot for me. Because the uncertainty of it all.
Exactly. There is no certainty. There's a quote from Byron Katie, if I can remember it. If you're looking for security and something else, she says, you're on the wrong planet. It's not available here. So
yeah,
we're looking for control. I want to know that it's going to be okay in 1 second or 10 minutes or whatever. I don't know what's going to happen in 10 minutes. I've only got now, like the power of now. This is it. So to come back to the morning anxiety, I've worked with a lot of people who have very intense morning anxiety, and I grew up with that. The dynamic, the family home, a lot of fear, hated school, absolutely hated school all my life. It was like a prison sentence. So when I moved into this kind of work, there's two aspects to it. One is like, okay, this energy is already here, to tie that in with unconditional love. So I had an experience living in the car, right? And I was in the car maybe about just over a year at this point, and it went on a lot longer. And at this point, I had always realized I'm going to get out of the car. Life's going to move on. The universe is going to look after me. So I'm just over a year in the car, a chest infection, a sinus infection. I have anemia and all sorts of other things. And the body is just in bits, and it's the middle of winter. And I had a moment one evening in meditation that I like a realization, I'm going to die in this car. I'm not going to get through this. And that was the first moment that it hit me. Up until then, I thought, no, like I'm on a spiritual path. I'm going to get through this. And in those moments, I began instinctively to just accept, I was 40 years of age at that time. I live in a car, bags of food and clothes around me. The car was like 20 years of age. It was falling apart. Just the acceptance that the realization that this is not my identity. This is just circumstances that are happening. And I'm doing my best, but it's not my identity. And the flip side to that is that that experience, and still there's an undercurrent of it today, that the conditioning of this Gavin body mind did believe, and of a lot of men, is status or money or some sort of success. But had I not had that car experience, let's say I wrote the amazing book or made the amazing movie, that would have become my identity.
Right. Yeah.
And I would have believed, oh, I'm really successful and all that. But that's not really true either. That's just an experience that's happening. So the car experience helped me to recognize that this is all just happening, and to allow it to happen and to make peace with and allow whatever is here, whatever sensations or emotions or energies are arising, whatever is coming up. With the morning anxiety, there's two angles. One is to open to and allow this energy to be here. Like, this is the shadow. This is an aspect of ourselves that we're instinctively rejecting for whatever reason. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But the other angle is, are you positive that that energy is anxiety?
Good point, because sometimes it does feel like fear.
Are you positive it's fear?
In the moment, that's a good question to ask myself. Like, am I sure this is?
Let me expand on that. So you're on a spiritual path, and most people listening to this, and I see it on threads and on social media daily. Spiritual people complaining about anxiety, but at the same time they're asking, and we're all asking, for love, or we're asking for healing, or we're asking to open our hearts. Now, there's two angles to this, the shadow work or energetic angle. Let's consider that if you're someone like me who has like childhood issues, addiction issues, and all sorts of kind of chaos on and off throughout life, there's potential that there's like pockets of energy in the heart, or pockets of energy in the body. Animals shake off trauma, and we can tend to kind of retain it in the energy or in the energy body, however you want to label it. So if there's pockets of grief, sadness, sense of rejection from our peers or an old girlfriend or my parents, I didn't quite meet the mark, whatever it may be, that as we open up and as we, for want of a better word, heal or move along this path, it's possible that this starts to breathe and move, and it's flowing, it's moving. So our job is just to let this flow. Let it move. The clouds are crossing the sky. Let the clouds cross the sky. But what happens is the cloud crosses the sky, and we take out a notebook and we start to analyze the shape of the cloud and why the cloud is there. So we're getting involved in a frequency, in an energy that's just moving. It doesn't need any intrusion. It doesn't need a label or a story or an explanation. It's just moving. If we're asking for the heart to open and we're moving in that direction, I would say, I don't particularly believe in anxiety. I'm not convinced. I get that those, because I suffer, this body has those sensations too. But I also realize that anxiety is highly powerful energy. And most of us are looking for more energy. Here it is. If we can just channel that or allow that to breathe and see where it takes us, rather than immediately labeling it as a problem or as something wrong that we need to get free of. So I often use the analogy of the ice bath, of people getting in, and Wim Hof, who gets into ice baths, that when I lived in the car, I used to go to gyms for showers, and I'd have like an ice cold shower, and then I'd get into a sauna. And I realized in those two experiences that my mind would tell me that this is dangerous. The water is too cold, or you're going to collapse in the sauna, you're going to have a heart attack, you're going to die. Neither of those things happened. So I started to realize, the mind is giving me incorrect information. It thinks it's helpful, but it's actually, the longer I stay in the cold shower or in the sauna, it seems to actually be more beneficial. And the mind is telling me to do the opposite. So my point is with this energy to investigate what is actually happening, what's our actual experience. And if we can sink into the anxiety the way we would sink into an ice bath and center ourselves and allow that to be here, whatever you want to call it, childhood aspect, uncomfortable energy, let it do its thing and then see what happens.
I do know now that like science has done research that ice baths aren't necessarily great for women because it raises our cortisol. But I have done ice baths before. That experience that you've had, I completely understand that, where my brain was like, oh, I'm gonna die. And I did feel like I was gonna die in the ice bath. I'm not gonna lie. I was like, I am going to die in here. And then like you get out and you go into like the warmer pool and you're like, but then your brain just sort of like shuts down. Like for me, that was my experience anyway. I was just like, Oh. And I was like, oh, I get it. I want to connect this to morning anxiety because I do feel a lot of physical pain with my morning anxiety. Like it hurts, like it physically hurts my chest when I feel
Mm.
it. How can I reinterpret that pain as something different? Or is it just my mind is like, this is anxiety, it's painful, it hurts, go away? Is my mind creating the pain for me?
In a sense, yes. Like the mind is highly useful. I describe the mind like a calculator. Like I need a calculator to do my accounts. It's highly purposeful, but I'm not going to use a calculator to diagnose my heartbreak or my trauma or my energy. It's only a calculator. It's only a processor. And we're in a society that worships a processor. We worship people who are considered wise or intelligent or very well read or have lots of letters after their name. I'm not going to name names, but there's plenty of people out there, famous people writing books, the huge YouTube channels, but seem to have a lot of continued trauma and they're highly educated, they're highly intelligent. With any of this work, I just suggest to people to test. Don't trust me, don't dive in. Sit like with the ice bath. It's like you put, by the way, I'm not promoting ice baths either. I'm not.
It's okay. No, it's a good analogy. It's good.
I'm just using that as an analogy that I
Yeah.
started to learn. Oh, the mind doesn't know what's
Yeah.
happening.
Yeah.
So, like, the mind is a caveman. It's basically saying, don't leave the cave. There's a dinosaur. But now we're in 2026. I haven't encountered any dinosaurs so far today. So it seems maybe I can actually leave the cave. But that's what it does. Like it learns, say, from a childhood or a rejection dynamic, and then it relives that even though, oh, there's no rejection. And I'm 49 years of age. I'm not in the family home anymore. So it doesn't really add up. We have such close identification with the mind that whatever it says, most of it we just go along with. We believe it. So if it says it's anxiety, if it says it's pain, if it says it's dangerous or whatever, we take it and we run with it. So I'd suggest test like the ice bath. You might put an ankle in first, you put your knee in, we go down in it, and we realize, okay, this, yes, it's cold, it is uncomfortable, but I seem to be still alive, I am still breathing. The work that I do would be perceived as being quite extreme for some people, but that's just the journey that I went on myself. So I seem to be useful for people who are ready to kind of go into something that can be quite challenging. And in myself, in those moments in the car or encountering, intense anxiety, there's another analogy I use of, imagine if you live on this small island and there's fruit and there's animals and there's water and all the rest of it, but it's a really small island. And you grow up and you've spent decades here and you know the island like the back of your hand. You're bored to death with this island, but there's a deep river and there's another island on the other side. And this other island seems to have different fruit or different people or different whatever. And you think, I'd really love to experience that island. And we walk out into the water comes up, and we think, no way, this is way too frightening, too much. So we go back to the island. And we might do that 5, 6 times. And eventually we get to a point where I think, if this kills me, I'm crossing that river one way or another. I'm done.
I'm either dead or I'm crossing the river. Yeah.
Yeah. And to be honest, I've encountered that a few times. And with that level of anxiety or whatever uncomfortable energies or entities that I've encountered, there has always been or often been an awareness that I got to go through this. A doorway has been presented and I can't live back there anymore, escaping that energy or denying it. It keeps coming back. So I have to see where this takes me. And nothing bad has ever happened. Again, it's the don't get into the ice bath. It's the mind that's just saying, turn back.
And I think the empowering thing for me is what you touched on before. Like it might not even be anxiety. It could be something else. Tell me if I'm understanding this right. As spiritual people, we're asking for energy. And then we have this thing that we feel it's just like different. It's like this scary thing, this anxiety thing, but maybe it's not anxiety. Maybe it's this thing that we've been calling in, this power that we've been calling in.
Exactly. Mislabeled. Yeah,
Mislabeled.
misunderstood. Yeah. And it is the caveman in a sense that's saying, this is new, don't like it, get rid of it, which is fine. because that's the job. The job of the mind is like, don't go outside the cave. There's a dinosaur there. That's okay. But we're no longer in the cave. As I said earlier, like that energy is already there. And like this work will test unconditional love. You know, we talk a lot about unconditional love, and then it's like, oh, I want to unconditionally love myself, but I just don't want anything to do with this piece of me. It's absolutely horrible and shameful. I don't want anyone to see it, and I don't want to feel it anymore. That doesn't sound like unconditional love. Unconditional love means the rage, the impatience, the unhappiness, the sadness, the shame, the guilt, the old experiences or new experiences. The Julienne, right, that you are right now is the accumulation of your life journey, right? So let's say you wake up this morning and let's say you feel lots of anxiety. That's perfect. That's exactly what that body mind, the accumulation of that body mind. It is brainwashing that we have learned that says, I'm having the incorrect experience. The universe has given me the wrong experience. I must get rid of it. But I see that the complete opposite. Whatever is happening here, fear, shame, anxiety, that's what's arising. And that's the natural conditioning of the journey that the Gavin has been on. That makes perfect sense from the life that I have lived and probably from the life that you've lived. So if we can reframe that and see that, oh, this is perfect. It is uncomfortable. And, you know, I don't want to be reactive or aggressive, or I don't want to have those experiences. When I say this to people, like of allowing this energy and embracing this energy, often their initial response is, oh, but then I'm going to become more anxious, or I'm going to become more reactive or angry. And my experience is the exact opposite. Like that's another ice bath story. If I allow this, I'm going to start shouting at people or I'm going to become depressed. My experience is that if I allow this to breathe and open up to it and unconditionally welcome it and allow it to whatever aspect it is, the reactivity settles, the anxiety settles, because it's like there's no longer a resistance. It's the pushing away that causes it to get louder.
Yeah. Yeah, I do try to like let it just be, and then I just end up going to the gym and lifting weights. It's like,
that's okay
go
too.
lift the weights.
Okay, Seekers, I think this is a really great place to take a break. We'll be right back with the episode. Grief doesn't move in a straight line, and it doesn't come with a clear path forward either. Seekers, if you've experienced loss, whether it's a loved one, a pet, miscarriage, or another life transition, Healing After Loss was created to support you through it in a real and grounded way. Led by trauma-informed intuitive energy healer Julienne Irons, this self-paced course gives you space to process your emotions, understand what you're moving through, and find your own path forward with tools, reflection, and optional life support along the way. And because you're listening to The Hanged Woman, you can receive 10% off with code THEHANGEDWOMAN. Remember joy again and learn more at threeofcupshealing.com/HAL course. That's threeofcupshealing.com/HAL course. And the code for 10% off is The Hanged Woman. Hey, Seeker. So if your marketing feels unclear or inconsistent, it's usually not because you're doing it wrong. It's because it's not fully aligned yet. At 3 of Cups Healing, we use energy and intuitive-based marketing strategy to help you get clear on your messaging, your audience, and how to show up in a way that actually works for you. That means less second-guessing, more direction, and a business that feels like it fits. So, Seeker, if you're ready to stop second-guessing and start moving with intention, book a free consultation at threeofcupshealing.com. Your vision, your magic. Let's make it real. Together. That's threeofcupshealing.com. All right, let's keep the perspective shift going.
So, Gavin, you've mentioned that there are different types of shadow work, intellectual and energetic. Can you break down the difference between those?
There's a lot of journaling around people with shadow work. I'm not against journaling, but it's just that what I said, that, you know, for anyone listening or anyone practicing, just notice, are you trying to understand this emotion, or are you trying to feel this emotion? And just to contemplate that in the coming hours, days, weeks, as you journal or as you analyze a dream or a feeling, would you prefer 100 books describing a strawberry, or would you prefer to eat a strawberry? The 100 books will never come close to the experience of a strawberry. They're two completely different things. Falling in love, grief, sadness, joy, the smell of fresh coffee, the taste of the strawberry, the warmth of the sun, the breeze. These are experiences of being alive. They're nothing to do with my journaling or my trying to understand. They're just two paths. And if someone wants the concept path and the intellectual path, that's fine. But I've encountered many people that kind of have a wake-up moment on that, and they kind of think, oh yeah, I don't want to do that anymore. I want to feel, I want to experience.
Gavin, in what ways do unprocessed or rejected parts of ourselves impact how we value ourselves?
Well, first of all, like our society is kind of chasing, we're chasing the better job or the better relationship or the more money or the whatever, or the healing or the something. And there's something driving that, underneath that maybe is being avoided, like the anxiety or the discomfort. And I think for many of us, it takes time to see that. It might take a lifetime to see that. We go through chasing success or money or whatever, and then eventually we might arrive in therapy, and there might be a little bit of investigation or looking, and then we might move on to kind of spiritual work or deeper work. So that's been my experience, Ali. It's been a very long, slow process. I wish all that was kind of compacted into a year or a few months, but it's been a gradual process. It depends, I think, what a person is looking for. If I ask 100 people, what are you looking for? Do you want peace? Most people would say, yeah, I'd love peace. But then if we look at our behaviors, it's kind of like an obese person. I really want to lose weight. What did you have for dinner today? And they might reel off pizzas or fast food or whatever it may be. So they want to lose weight, but they're not living that way. But I think it helps to have clarity, to see that, yeah, I'm really chasing peace and I'm meditating, I'm doing all these things, but my behaviors are taking me in a different direction. And what I mean by that is that discomfort or emptiness or shadow or whatever you want to call it, void that is not being felt or not being looked at, then becomes the energy or the fuel or the motivation to, I call it other, because I want other. It's always over there. If I could just get the new shoes, the new phone, the new partner, I don't know, more healed, more money, different country, different table. And it might be a 5-second thing. Oh, I just really want a cup of coffee. Or it could be a lifetime thing. I really want to write that book. Someday I'm going to write that book. And we're always putting our peace of mind, our identity over there, other, if I can get to other. But if I can stay in the discomfort of now, and accept whatever is happening now, the need to get to an other or an alternate experience starts to decrease and fall away. We can still go after those things, still want the new car or the new phone, but I no longer need those things to feel fulfilled.
What's coming up for me is like I have these parts of myself, my unsuccessful part of me, or like the part that I feel like didn't make it, or like, doesn't have the money that she wants. I've been single for 14 years, so like haven't been in a relationship. So there are these parts of me that make me feel like I don't have value for this world, or I don't have value for my community. What I'm understanding is if I can like sort of switch that in my brain to say, I don't need those things to be of value. I don't need those things to like be worthy. I am just worthy. I do have value without those things.
Spirituality is a lot like think positive. Mindset is a trendy word as well, about changing your mindset or changing your thinking. So I tried all of these things over 30 years. They didn't really work. But the only thing that I've found that does work is called self-inquiry. And that's, rather than changing my thinking, it's actually like, in a sense, like that's why I might have said before that shadow work and non-duality for me go hand in hand. Shadow work is the allowing of what's already happening, the opening to. So I'm going to, rather than trying to fix it or get away from it, I'm going directly to it. And non-duality is if there's unhelpful thoughts. So the thoughts that you have are the same. We're all sharing the same stuff. Like we think that I'm embarrassed of what my stuff is, but like everyone wants more money. Everyone wants to be in the right relationship, to be in love, or to be successful, or to be perceived by their peers or family as being successful. And non-duality is to go directly to that thought. So I'm single, I think 2 or 3 years now. And it's the same thoughts, I'm getting older. I made a mistake? Should I be in a relationship? Do I want to be in a relationship? I wish I was in a relationship. No, I don't want to be whatever it may be.
Do you and I have the same brain?
Yes.
Yes.
Ultimately, yes, because we're all
Yeah.
sharing the same stuff.
Yeah.
But it's to go and investigate that thought. Like, I might have said this to you before when we spoke, that, when we turn on the television, if we hear a politician or a celebrity, we'll be kind of skeptical, and they'll say whatever they speak about the state of the world or whatever they believe. And sometimes we'll agree, and sometimes we'll kind of go, I'm not sure about that. And we might discuss it with a friend. But when this thing speaks, 90% of what it says, we will swallow it, believe it. It's unbelievable. And this thing can talk us into addiction, suicide, depression, anxiety, unquestioned. If you spoke to me the way this thing speaks to me, I would stop it immediately. If I followed you around for 10 minutes and spoke to you the way your mind speaks, you pretty quickly you'd say, enough, like, get out of the house. But yet we allow this to kind of rattle on. And the problem is that a lot of it is kind of, for want of a better word, unconscious. It's just, if it's saying something negative under the surface for 3 hours, it's going to have an effect. We need to engage those, like, I have pens and paper. I literally have 3 notebooks beside me on the desk here. There's probably 2 over there. There's 1 upstairs in the bedroom, pens everywhere. So if this stuff comes up, I'm not as active these days with this, but if something comes up, it's written down and it's looked at. I should be in a relationship. I should have more money. I'm not enough. I didn't succeed in life. And to question that, like, is that true? Like, who's speaking here? Where does this come from? And to unravel that's ultimately what I teach, shadow work and non-duality, to unravel those questions. And the more we get to see that a lot of what this thing says is actually untrue and unhelpful, we lose interest in that voice. The reason we listen to it is we think it has wisdom, or maybe we think it's our higher self, or we think it's something insightful, but most of it is not. There is the odd insightful thought, inspiration that comes through. Wow, I never thought of that. Brilliant. But 59,999 other thoughts that day were kind of useless. So if we can look at them, go direct to them and question them, like, be rigorous with them, the way we would with a politician. If he sat down in front of me and he started talking about whatever it may be, I would grill this politician. So I need to have that same, or a friend, like if a friend lies to me or gives me some bullshit story, I'm going to, once or twice, I might let them away with it. But then I'll start to say, I don't really trust what you're saying to me anymore. We need to have that same investigation with our own thinking.
If there was a friend who was like lying to me, or if somebody was like bullying me, why is it so easy for me to be like, get away from me?
Yeah.
But for our own brains, we can't do, like, we can't do that.
Yeah. Like,
so much more difficult.
Yeah. If a friend lies to me, once or twice, I might not know what's happening, but 3rd time or 4th time, I'll eventually say, I know you a long time. I love you. We're good friends, but I don't know why you're saying these things, or I don't know where your evidence is, politely, or maybe I might be more reactive and I say, listen, I've had enough of this. And the politician or the celebrity or the person trying to sell me some junk that I don't need, I'll ask questions here. Where's your evidence on this? But if this thing says, your life has really been a failure and you haven't succeeded and the anxiety's become, I'll go, okay, thank you. Like, why can't? So that's what we need to do. Turn around and say, okay, let's have a discussion here. Where's your evidence for this? Is this really true? Your life has been a failure. Well, hang on. I'm having this amazing conversation with Julienne. The sun is shining. It seems quite peaceful. Did I just say my life has been amazing or my life has been terrible? Maybe I Freudian slipped it the wrong way
You
around.
said my life has been amazing.
Okay. I meant
your life
Freudian
is
slip.
amazing.
It is amazing. But if it was, it's been terrible. It's like, I need you to produce evidence for these things. Nobody loves me. Okay, well, a few people who love me. I have some good friends. Okay, so that these sentences might need to be deconstructed again and again and again. But as we actually factually see, a lot of this stuff is untrue. It's an unfounded belief. It's like the belief of anxiety. I learned somewhere in my teens or in therapy that I have anxiety. So I spent decades trying to fix and heal this anxiety. And then eventually arrived at, luckily, the perspective, maybe it's just energy. But I've been living from this one belief for 20, 30 years that now I'm not sure it was true at all. It's like people who join cults and they believe that this is the way. And then one day they think, maybe it's not.
So are you saying because we've been taught these things about ourselves our entire life, we now think these things are true, and that's why it's harder for us to like stop ourselves like we would
Yes,
the politician or the bully or the celebrity? Got it.
exactly. There's now a foundation of 30 years or 10 years or whatever it may be. There's backing, there's reinforcement. We've relayed these stories again and again and again. We mulled over the failed relationship or the mistakes we think we made. And it's not just the belief in, say, the word anxiety. What it's really a belief in is that at the age of 2, or around the age of 2, there is separation. That we now start to believe in mother, father, and me. And we now the identity of a Gavin or a Julienne starts to develop. This voice starts to develop. So we have years and years and years and years and years of thinking that voice is me. So I have to pay attention to it. It's going to give me direction. It's going to tell me where to go. But I know we're going into deeper territory now, but logically, am I the voice or am I the thing that's listening to the voice? Is there two of me, or which one am I? And it seems the voice is erratic. It's unpredictable. It can be destructive and it can be high. It can be, I never know what's going to come out of its mouth, what it's going to think. But the thing that's looking at the voice seems to be silent, seems to be still, seems to be peaceful. It doesn't have any huge highs or lows. But the thing that's looking at the voice has basically fallen asleep and has been convinced that it is this voice.
It's like our observer has fallen asleep.
Yeah, that's the dream.
Yeah.
But it's intentional. It's not a mistake. That's the human experience. We're going to go into the matrix and we're going to believe that I'm a calculator or I'm this program and it's having this kind of wild experience of up and down. And awakening is the recognition moment to moment that, oh my God, I'm not that calculator. I'm not a calculator.
I'm not a calculator.
I'm the thing looking at the calculator.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I love that. I feel like then my work is to, in those moments, wake up my observer to observe what's happening rather than being in the thing, listening to that voice, making that voice who I am. Instead, it's wake up my observer and be like, no, this is just, I don't know. I'm losing my words, but I feel it in the inside. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's impossible to describe. It's impossible to put into words. There's something that's observing and there's something that's speaking now. It's not a Gavin and it's not that voice. And I can tell you it's not that voice because there's no thinking about what's going to happen. And I'm sure the experience is the same for you. Of course, sometimes we think, now I'm going to say this. We have an idea. But when we're in the flow, like there's no thinking, there's talking happening. I'm not planning to move my hands or move my head. All of this is happening beyond me. But this calculator, the dream is the calculator becomes convinced that it's doing all of these things, and it's not, because it's just a calculator. A calculator can't eat a sandwich. It can't move a body. It can't decide. It can't do any of these things. But there's nothing wrong. That's the dream. Like awakeness or consciousness wants to pretend that it's a Julienne or that it's a Gavin. So if there's a high or if there's a low or if there's suffering, that's what it wants. Like we watch dramas, we watch Shakespeare, we watch the news because on some level we do enjoy the drama.
Yeah, I'm big on K-dramas, so I really understand that. Huge. So you talked a little bit about non-duality, right? the idea that, as we're talking right now, like the idea that identity is an illusion. Can you explain more about what non-duality is exactly, and where do you see people using that to bypass shadow work?
The mind is a processor, it is a calculator, and it accumulates information. And we see it up in spirituality and people reading more books. They're trying to understand this, they're reading psychology, they're trying to understand who they are rather than get free or rather than be at peace. There's nothing wrong in that too, but it does help to be aware that we might have a moment where we realize, like the journaling, like, oh my God, I'm spending 45 minutes journaling about a feeling. Why don't I just feel the feeling? With shadow work as well, we can learn, that, oh, I'm not a Gavin. I'm not a body. Like, it's ironic that we, in spirituality, we say, oh, I'm a spiritual being having a human experience. But then as soon as I walk past a mirror, I think that that's me, or a spoon or a camera. I think, oh, that's me that's not me at all. Whatever I am is wearing a body mind. And again, that does not mean denying the body mind. That does not mean rejecting the body mind. From my perspective, that is unconditional love. If I recognize that I'm the wearer of this, I can allow it to go through whatever it needs to go through. Whereas if I believe I'm a Gavin body mind, my experience is I'm trying to heal it, I'm trying to fix it, I'm trying to make it look better, more respectable, more successful, and so on. And that's not unconditional love. So we learn these concepts of shadow work and non-duality, and then we're not actually having the experience. We're not now. Ultimately, in a sense, there's nothing really to learn in non-duality. I had a phone call with a woman about 4 years ago, and it was a kind of consultation call if she was going to work with me or not, if we were going to work together, because I tend to screen people too to see if they're ready for this, if we're aligned, if this will go well or not well. And many of those calls, it's like seeds were sown and we go our separate ways. And some of those people come back to me 6 months later. I had one woman who came back to me 2 years later and she's like, I'm ready now. In this call, this woman was finishing my sentences. She knew it inside out, but she was not living it. She had just accumulated all the teachings, all the belief systems or perspectives, all the language, and she could regurgitate that. But she was still quite unhappy, quite empty. And we didn't end up working together. She didn't choose to work with me, and that's okay. Non-duality is about pointing. It's the old analogy or cliche of pointing to the moon and looking at the finger or looking at the hand. And non-duality is pointing to the taste and the experience of the strawberry. But we're all going to the library and we're buying another book on strawberries and we're kind of completely missing. Like, non-duality is about an experience. It's about my direct experience right now. My direct experience right now is that there seems to be someone that might be called Gavin on a glass screen here. Other than that, I can't find a Gavin. There is a collection of thinking. You mentioned at the start of that question about the illusion of identity. Gavin is just a collection of memories. So if I'm now speaking with you, I have to go into memory and think about Gavin to kind of give it some life.
Can we fully engage with non-duality without doing energetic work first?
Yeah, because anything is possible. People are on different paths. But I would be speaking to the people that, because most of us, sadly, like in this kind of path or this kind of work, we're very intellectual. I know I've kind of beaten that drum of that throughout this conversation, that we read a lot of books and we're really obsessed with learning information and new concepts as opposed to actually living. That type of person will then come to non-duality and naturally start gathering more information without the feeling. And they're thinking that, well, if I can understand, I'm going to feel at peace. What they're missing is that, are they really not at peace? So shadow work helps us to see that whatever emotions or sensations are happening, that they're okay. They're part of that human cake or pie. Like, that's part of the ingredients. There's nothing wrong here. To circle back in a sense to what we started from, that if there's an underlying belief, a really deep root that there's something wrong here that needs healing or fixing or whatever it may be, that root will remain all the way until it's actually investigated and questioned and uprooted. So if we arrive at non-duality with a little belief that there's something wrong, well, then we're going to think there's something wrong with these feelings. We're going to think there's something wrong with, I don't know, my behavior or my speech or my lifestyle or whatever it may be. We can just skip over the feeling to go into non-duality. Whereas from my experience, both are, it's yin and yang. I need to be able to feel and I need to be able to question the mind.
So, Gavin, what tends to come up for people when they start to face their shadow?
There is a quote actually from Nisargadatta that says, that when we start to, I'm going to make a mess of it, but when we start to look at ourselves, we need all the courage to go further, he says, because we start to see what we haven't seen before. So a lot of people, when they come to me, they say, oh, I don't want to feel this stuff. I've been feeling this stuff all my life. And you're telling me to sink into it and to allow it. Like they're saying, I'm done with it. And I'm saying, no, you haven't been completely feeling it. You've been feeling a little bit of it. And then there's been a horrible story about it. The horrible story causes suffering. Like if we remove the story, there's just an emotion or a sensation. And it might be uncomfortable, but an emotion or a sensation that's uncomfortable with a horrible story is much worse. So that courage is about to just trust it, trust the process, and just keep sinking into it and keep crossing that river.
Why is this process so uncomfortable or overwhelming? I assume because it hurts, but is there like, why don't we want to feel this shit?
There's a book by Adyashanti which is called The End of Your World, and it's quite a dramatic title, but I think it's even understated. It is the death, like people talk of ego death. It's a death, and the ego doesn't completely die because it's part of the human makeup. We need to communicate and live on Earth. So we have the observer looking at this calculator, looking at this voice, so totally convinced that it is this voice. So if this voice starts to break down, it thinks that it's dying. That's all. It's just like a layer of a calculator or a layer of code, computer code, is being removed and replaced with something new. And we think it's the end of the world. So there is nothing wrong. Like in a sense, it's just a reprogramming. There is an analogy as well that I like, that like if we move house, if an alien looks down at us moving house, it might look like we're packing up all our furniture into a truck. Or we're going to this new empty house with no furniture, and like that maybe the walls need to be painted, and it's kind of horrible. But you have to go through that transition of packing up your furniture and putting it in a truck and looking for a new location. And it can be uncomfortable, but ultimately, hopefully, we arrive in this new house and we've upgraded. But it is a period of transition. And it's also like, I mean, you mentioned lifting weights. I'm not really a gym person or an exercise person, way too lazy, but there's discomfort in that. And there's reward. You have mornings where you think, I'm not going to the gym today. I have no interest in it. And maybe some days the body gets up and it goes to the gym, and it's like, I'm glad I went to the gym. I feel better.
Most mornings I want to get up and go, but there's some mornings where I'm like, I don't feel like doing it. I'm like, no, but remember how you feel when you're done.
Yeah.
You feel amazing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh yeah, let's go, and then I do.
So if you follow that early on thought, which many people do, you wouldn't go to the gym. And it's the ice bath. This is too cold or dangerous. I'm not getting in. This shadow work feels scary. I'm not going to do it. Or this feeling is becoming too uncomfortable. I'm going to leave it alone. But or starting a business, or traveling to a new country, or embarking on a new relationship. There's a degree of fear with all of these things. And hopefully on the other side of them, not all of them, there's a reward. There's like, okay, I'm glad I got out of my comfort zone. I'm glad I did that thing.
What starts to change when someone begins to move through their shadow instead of avoiding it?
It often, but not always, gets worse before it gets better. Because of what I said earlier, that we've been looking at stories and we haven't really been feeling. And now we're going to actually really start to feel. Another analogy is that, for people in a relationship, that you want your partner to be fully present. You want eye contact. You don't want them on their phone or looking at the TV. You had a really bad day. Okay. You want them paying attention, but we really need that for ourselves. I get people who complain about the partner, but then within 5 minutes, I see that they can't be with themselves. They can't be with that discomfort. So the test is to be with that place. Can I be with that place myself? And that's why it often gets worse. before. It's like the gym, like you got to leave your house. Maybe it's raining, maybe it's freezing cold. You got to lift that first weight. It's like, oh my God, I don't have energy today. But then we move through it.
We talked just now about like how this might impact relationships. How does this impact our identity, our relationships, or our sense of self-worth?
I can only speak from my own experience that I think I began to see that, well, first of all my relationships were not very good, when I started this work. I had a moment, through shadow work that I actually realized that there's an exercise I did that I would write down behaviors that other people had that I didn't like, if people were late or rude or whatever it may be. And I started to realize that, oh, I have all of these things too. I just might express them in a different way. So the things that other people were bothering me, that I was bothered about, were actually reflections of my own behavior. I started to see that I was the common denominator in all of the issues of the people around me. Of course, like there's dysfunction, in other people. The only time I would say is, like, of course, if someone is aggressive or violent, get away. But our world has become so sensitive that they think he or she is toxic or dangerous, and they're not really. They might just be assertive, or they might be rude, might be a bit nasty. But like, I can live with nasty. I think we can all live with nasty. If we can grow a thicker skin and get a bit freer, we can get through that. So I started to see that I was the common denominator in all of these relationships. And also that my self-esteem was really attached to, I don't know, like I grew up like MTV generation, MTV Cribs. And I didn't think that any of that stuff really influenced me. In my teens, 20s, there was what's called the Celtic Tiger in Ireland. It was the property boom, which was in the US and all over the world. People buying new cars and 3 apartments and all this thing. And I didn't realize that I was deeply, although I wasn't on that path, I wasn't one of those people. On some level, I was comparing myself, that I don't have the new car or the second apartment or the first apartment or any of these things, and started to realize I was still pursuing some sort of status, some sort of identity. So the deconstruction of all that was the realization that whoever or whatever I am, I'm enough. Whatever this Gavin body mind experience is happening, that's fine. It's okay. I'm not a Gavin body mind. I'm wearing it. And whatever is beneath this is complete, is enough.
Gavin, how does shadow work prepare someone for the kind of insight or awareness that non-duality points to for us?
Shadow work brings us into the body or into the energy. There's a lie in there somewhere because we're not in the body. We think I'm inside the body. I can't find myself in the body, but it's a good direction, like be in the body, feel the body. And shadow work gets us used to actually just being on earth, being here with the discomfort or with whatever is happening without trying to escape it or fix it. And it's from that place that we investigate thought. So I just realized this is quite important, that if I'm to sit down and investigate, oh, nobody loves me. We're using the tool.
And when you said that second nobody loves me, you mimicked writing it down, just so listeners can know what just happened.
So if I write that nobody loves me, and if I investigate that, the mind is a tool, it is a calculator, it is useful. I'm going to use the mind to investigate that thought. But what can happen, obviously, and I know I've beaten the drum with this many times, is that we could end up of 20 minutes of analysis. Oh, but I think this and I think that, but nobody does it, but they don't love me and I don't love them. We're not looking to do that. And this is why it's useful with shadow work. We're looking to be in the energy, in the body, still, from a place of stillness, a place of clarity, or, even if there's fear, to be in that fear, to be in that energy, and then look at that sentence. So that's different to like being in the head and a wild debate of they think this and I think that. I'm not doing that. I'm writing down my sentence. I'm going to be in the energy, afraid or angry or sad or whatever it may be. And I'm going to look at that sentence and I'm going to investigate it from that place of stillness.
And what's different about awakening when it's grounded in this kind of work versus when it's only intellectual?
I don't consider myself awake, and I'm not sure of that term or any of these terms, because they're very loaded and we're all trying to get to that place. And there is, of course, there's a spiritual ego and human ego of wanting. I mean, I started meditating at 17 to become enlightened, whatever the hell that meant. These days, I try to stay away from using those words, but I know they're also useful for people to hear. So I don't consider myself, I like the word clarity, because there's an increase or a decrease in clarity. Some days there's more noise or more emotion and more identification with that story, or more reactivity. And some days there's more clarity. There's less identification with that stuff. So it really is, in my experience, a moment-to-moment thing. I always thought that awakening or enlightenment, light switch, free now, plenty of money, heal myself, everything is perfect. And
Isn't it? That's not it.
I
That's
don't
not
think
it,
it
Gavin.
is. No. I mean, Eckhart Tolle, I think he was homeless, lived on the park bench, and he had an emotional breakdown. He had a pretty severe breakdown. There's lots of people who would like to be Eckhart Tolle, or would like to have that degree of peace. Do you want that degree of breakdown? Most people don't. I don't particularly want that. And there's another person I know who had like a breakdown, a snap, and thought that he was gone insane. He luckily ended up very clear afterwards. But I think for most of us, I describe it like an iceberg. It's a melting of an iceberg. It's a very gradual, like, of continual shadow work, continual feeling, continually investigating thoughts, and that iceberg continues to melt. So if we're not doing that work, we're just going to end up ungrounded. I spoke to a guy a couple of years ago who, by the sounds of it in our phone call, he had like an Eckhart Tolle awakening maybe 10 or 15 years ago. He sounded, from what had happened back then, he sounded incredibly awake and clear the way he described it. But it just happened. He assumed then he was enlightened or awakened, and he continued drinking heavily and smoking grass heavily. And by the time he got to me and we had the phone call, I thought the guy was in psychosis. But he believed that he was like the second coming. He believed that he was here to heal people and awaken people. And if he hadn't described the previous experience years before, I would have just thought he was mad. But I do think he had an amazing shift, but lost it. And we can lose it, if we start to identify with the mind again, we start to think that I'm awake and I'm clear, or I'm a healer, or whatever it may be. That's kind of dangerous territory.
So, Gavin, for someone who's listening who's new to this, where can they begin with shadow work in a way that feels safe and accessible?
That's a good question. I don't know if I have an answer for that. Because the universe seems to find a way, it seems to present people. Or like these days we have, with Google, we have AI, we have all of these kind of angles to test the water and to look. But as I've said a lot, I would just observe yourself and notice, is there momentum to learn and to gain information? And if you can be honest with yourself and you think there is, that's cool. And that might burn out, or there might be a movement towards an actual experience. I need to find peace regardless of the information.
I like what you said about like the universe, right? Like will present stuff to you. And I find that to be true. Like when I was in a really low point in life, my sister gave me a gift with To Be Magnetic, and it's all about shadow work. I never would have known what that was unless she
Yeah.
gave that to me. So it was like universe presenting me with something. And now like I use that work all the time to help with like shadow work and self-worth, identity work and stuff like that, inner child stuff.
Perfect. Yeah. If you're interested in shadow work, try to remain open to everything. So I personally, I don't believe in like narcissists. I don't believe in toxic people. I don't believe in any of those popular things, but it's okay if other people do, because I would see that as a reflection of me. I'm encountering an aspect of myself, but I get that can be pretty challenging when it's an intense dynamic. Years ago in ayahuasca, I encountered all sorts of, very difficult entities and very difficult journeys. And I remember sharing with the shaman afterwards, I said, like, what the hell is going on here? Like, this is demonic or whatever. And he said to me, these are teachers. And this was a man of very few words. He would say, these are teachers. and he'd move on to something else, and I'd be left going, what the hell does that mean? But and it took me a year or two or more to actually start to realize, oh my God, these are actually, you can't develop your muscles without resistance, without a heavier weight. So especially for anyone interested in spirituality or anyone working in energy work or spiritual work, if you're to become a sharper teacher or energy worker, well, it's not going to benefit your work if you're in this little protective, safe bubble. You need to encounter people who have depression, who are suicidal, who are addictive, who are depressed, who are suffering. And if you can become centered in that, then you're really free. And then you're really of service to these people. I know that's a bit advanced, but regarding the entry level to shadow work, it's like if you're on social media or if a neighbor challenges you or sends you a nasty message or text, to just be open to like, okay, I don't really know what's happening here. So rather than labeling them or reacting, to see, can I take care of me? Can I look at what's happening here? And little by little, the trail of breadcrumbs, the book given to you, little by little, as we move along the path, more doors open. Like at the start, we might think, well, why should I feel this feeling that my neighbor sent me this angry message? But if I can stay here, let's just see how it unfolds.
Gavin, if there's one truth you hope we all take away about shadow work and self-worth, what would it be?
I think what comes to mind is that I think it's really healthy and useful to not know, because we all have the answers, or we think we have the answers to everything. I know that this is. So I'm an intelligent, mature person. I've been through therapy. I've been through 20 odd years of recovery. I thought, I know what anxiety is. I'm not stupid. But I even had to investigate that and see, well, is it really anxiety? I don't really know what it is. It's a frequency, it's an energy. Maybe it's useful. Who knows where it's coming from? So that's just an example. But I think, often when I would engage with people on social media, they would say, no, but I know this, or I believe that. Hopefully you'll never hear me say, I believe. I try to stay from that, away from that word, because I've just come through so many changes in my life and spirituality that things that I strongly believed and defended fell away. And turns out they no longer resonate with me, or they're no longer true, or they no longer make sense. So I try not to pin my flag to any mast anymore. That I think it's really about, I don't know who I am. And I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what's happening. There's peace in that. Whereas if I think I know who I am and I think I know what I want, and I think I know where I'm going, there's immediate attachment. Why am I not getting what I want? Why is my life not? So the Lao Tzu and not knowing, I don't need to know most of this stuff. We're often looking to understand. I'm not going to understand where this emotion came from. Why? I'll tell you why. The reason we're looking to understand these things is because we think we'll gain control. It's ego. If I know what it is and how to fix it, I can master tomorrow. I'm going to feel better tomorrow. I'm going to get the money I want, or the girl I want, or whatever it is I want. It's ego. Whereas if I don't know what it is, I don't care what it is. And this now moment is actually fine. There's nothing wrong. Okay, if I remain in now, there's no issue. There's nothing lacking.
I love that, because that's something that I've been practicing moment by moment myself, because I'm so exhausted from trying to control everything. It's exhausting. I feel like burnt out from it. And so over the past few days, I've just been like letting it go and really just allowing myself to be in the moment and listen to my body as well. So if my body is tired, if my body is like, I can't do another hour of recording, I need to rest, I need to like sit on the couch and be quiet, I'm listening to that and I'm finding more peace.
That's perfect. I don't know who it's by, but I put a quote on my stories this morning on Instagram, if I can find it, which is basically pretty much exactly what you said. It's an Indian, I don't know if I can even pronounce his name, Ashtavakra. Eat when the body needs, stop when the need ends. Nothing more is required.
Yeah.
That's all. Rest when we need to rest. Get up when we need to get up. Eat when we need to eat. That's all it is. But we overcomplicate this with control.
Well, Gavin, this has been such an amazing conversation. I am so grateful for you. I'm shifted I've been shifted in this hour and a half that we've spent together. And whew, I'm just really grateful for your time and your wisdom and your energy here today. So thank you.
Thank you. I just want to say I don't take credit for whatever came through, that the opportunity of this or working with people, it allows something else to communicate. There is conditioning of a Gavin. Gavin is unclear and reactive, and Gavin has all these wild thoughts about life and all the rest of it. But it's with an increase in clarity, something else can speak or something else can communicate. So my point is that whatever I is, I learn from this too. I get to hear, as I'm sure you've had the experience, sometimes things come out of our mouth that we think, where did that come from? That was interesting. And I can't take any credit for it, but it's like, okay, it's interesting to watch whatever's happening.
Well, thank you to whatever that energy is communicated through you.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Gavin, where can people find you if you'd like to be found?
I go by Spontaneous Evolution, and you'd find me on most social media platforms. I think I'm most active on YouTube and on Instagram, and that might be at spontaneous underscore evolution or dash evolution, something like that. There is another Spontaneous Evolution. It was a book that was written by some guy years ago, but that's nothing to do with me.
All right, we'll definitely have it in the show notes.
Great, yeah.
Gavin, do you feel complete?
With this conversation, Gavin will never be complete, because Gavin's just a calculator, so he's always going to be looking for something else. But whatever I truly am, yes, is complete. I'm grateful for the interview. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Your questions were really, they brought up what needed to come through. So it was great. It was interesting. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Gavin.
So one of the biggest perspective shifts from this conversation for me was realizing that maybe not everything we label as fear or anxiety is actually fear or anxiety. Maybe some of what we experience as discomfort is just energy. Grief, excitement, love, healing, possibility. Something trying to move through us rather than something trying to hurt us. And y'all, maybe our suffering doesn't come from the feeling itself, but from immediately deciding that it shouldn't be there. Since having this conversation with Gavin, I've started waking up in the morning and asking my anxiety, if you aren't anxiety, what are you? And what's fascinating is that the answer keeps changing. Sometimes there's no answer at all. Sometimes it's grief over a life I thought I was supposed to have. Sometimes it's been fear around uncertainty. And sometimes it's an invitation to lean into trust and surrender. And I have to say, just simply becoming curious about these feelings instead of immediately labeling them has profoundly changed the way I relate to myself. Maybe not everything we feel is something to fix. Maybe some feelings are just asking to be heard. Seekers, throughout this theme, we've explored self-worth from many different angles, but underneath them all has been the same invitation: to stop treating ourselves like problems to solve and become more curious about what's already here. Okay, y'all, we're taking a short summer break, but don't worry. Starting next week, we'll be revisiting one of my favorite themes from the archives: happiness. And I love that we're beginning with Mackenzie Stewart's episode, From Fear to Freedom, because after spending the season exploring self-worth, I find myself hearing her message in a completely different way. Mackenzie taught us that happiness isn't found by avoiding fear, but by listening to what it has to teach us and moving forward anyway. And y'all, after my conversation with Gavin, I find myself wondering, what if some of the things we've been calling fear all along are actually invitations? I'm Julienne Irons, and this is Perspective Shifts for Healing with the Hink Woman. If this episode inspired you, please like, share, and follow so we can keep the conversation going. Until next time, hang in there, Seeker.